It's Backstage Pass with Steve Ryan. And here's your host, Steve Ryan.
How's that? Hey, Steve.
Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. Great to see you. Great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Of course. Are you in South Africa?
I am. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
So good evening to you. Good morning to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Steve, I am so excited to talk to you. I'll be honest with you. I feel like Americans don't know you as well as they should. And so when I had the opportunity to, when I was talking to your people about putting this together, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of your fans in South Africa who are going to watch this, but I really want you I want more Americans to know about you, because as I dug into you, and tell me if I'm pegging you correct, but I hear your music, especially the new stuff. I mean, you've got the new album that's coming out, and I was listening to that last night. I peg you somewhere between Santana and Eric Clapton.
Well, I'll take either of those.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be between them.
Well, it's good company, but brother, that the new album, Between Time, and the album covers behind me is so great, and the new single, Cruel Hand of Fate, I was listening to last night, and that's what stuck to me. It's like this could be Eric Clapton.
I can feel all that cruel hand of fate. Oh, I can feel it. Feel that cruel hand of fate. Tell me, still don't be late. I gotta ride down the line to Abilene. I gotta ride.
I just love it. Tell me about the new album.
Well, that track specifically has got Joe on it, Joe Bonamassa. The song he plays is not his normal, but he's such an intuitive player. He plays that beautiful solo, and it's on a guitar called a Telecaster B-bender, which makes the bridge actually bends. When you wiggle the strap, the bridge bends, and it makes it sound like a pedal steel. And it's so cool. It makes the song sound so great, and it fits so well with the slide on the song.
Well, you work with him a lot you work with him a lot, though.
Yes, that's because of Kevin Shirley, my friend and producer, is his producer and has produced his last 10 albums or 15 albums. They've been working together since 2006.
Yeah.
So he introduced me to Joe, and Joe's been so gracious to play on my stuff. So I'm really grateful.
Well, I love the new song, but the track that I kept going back to is "Do Me Good."
Yeah, I love that. That's one of my favorites. When we were recording it, the band dug it too. It's got a nice groove.
I never thought you would do me good. I never thought you could do me good. All the things you said tangled up in my head. I should have seen through you. I couldn't see, except your eyes are blue. I never thought you would.
Yeah, it does. And I guess now that you say that, it really came across, because I think I listened to it probably 3 times last night. I just said, I need to hear that again. Do you consider yourself a blues artist? Or where do you peg yourself?
I just grew up in everything, whether it was Santana or Clapton or Bob Dylan or Janis Joplin, was rock. There was only for me like one kind of music. So I would just say rock, and Jimi Hendrix was rock, but his blues, the categories. Even Dylan on acoustic guitar was rock to me.
Yeah. Are those people you mentioned, were those your influences when you were, kind of figuring your music out?
The first album that I heard, I don't know how, my dad had bumped into a DJ in the late 50s. In 1959, I was 4 years old. He brought an album back Dwayne Eddy's first album, and I put it on the
Yeah.
first track, Rebel Rouser,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what it was, but I just heard this, and it blew my mind. And probably the next year, I was in my mom's car, and I can remember it so clearly. And Fats Domino's Blueberry Hill came over the radio.
Yeah.
And that sort of music was just from out of space. It was just, and it really influenced me a lot.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
In Cape Town, in
Yeah.
South Africa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a
Hey,
lot of American music coming in on the radio, and obviously
yeah.
a lot of British stuff as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Beatles, were they a part of that or no?
Big time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
big time. Yeah. Beatles. And Elvis, and then there was an artist coming out of the UK called Cliff Richard.
Yeah.
And so it was, you either liked Cliff or Elvis, or you either liked the Stones or the Beatles,
Right.
And
Right.
so the rougher kids like the Stones and Elvis, and the less cool kids like Cliff and the Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Cliff Richard. I don't think he gets enough credit. But
He's a great songwriter. Yeah.
Hey, can we go, I wanted to ask you about All Night Radio, if that's okay.
Yeah.
That was a band that you were in the 80s, right? Was that your
Yep.
first band?
Yeah, first band. Yeah, first band that made a record.
So to me, that kind of had this 80s punk feel to it. Your music,
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Was that your plan when you first started? I'm gonna get
Yeah.
into the Ramones, kind of just a little bit lighter than the Ramones, but boy, I was digging that. I just found that.
Yeah, so there's a track that I love called Bernadette off the
Yeah.
second album.
Oh, it's
And
so
that's-
fast.
Yeah, I know, and I just love that song. It's like a 2.5-minute song, and that's one of my favorite songs ever that I've written. Bernadette. Yeah. So that was that kind of psychobilly punk. Yeah, it was. We formed in like very early '83. So that was the stuff around the Clash, and we loved all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the producer of our first album had recorded a lot of the Kinks albums, John Rollo. So he really knew how to get that live sound. Yeah. And then the album Kevin Shirley did.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, and I was a club DJ in the 80s, and the new wave and the punk stuff was what we were playing. And so when I was researching you and I found All Night Radio, I was like, wow, how come I didn't know about this when it was new?
Cool.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then of course, a lot of people know you, especially in your home country, because of Big Sky. And that's a bit of a departure from All Night Radio.
Very much so. So, All Night Radio, we broke up, too much touring, tough to keep going. It's a very small touring circuit in South Africa. And I just kept, I had a record deal, and they said you can make, a so-called solo album. And I'd just done the All Night Radio album with Kevin, so he did the next one as well, Waiting for the Dawn. And we put a group of musicians together, and then we called it Big Sky. And it was a departure because All Night Radio was different. We started off in the clubs and we were a band, whereas Big Sky was always kind of my solo thing, and I just gave it that name. With Big Sky, the live band and the studio band were different people.
Yeah. I had watched, and I was reading this, and I didn't know that, but you guys, you and Big Sky opened for Rodriguez when he finally made that tour in South Africa, and of course I've watched the Searching for Sugar Man documentary. Yeah. But how great was that?
that was so cool because, you know, as you see in the movie, these guys tracked him down and he had a big following in South Africa.
Yeah.
And he hadn't played guitar in years. You know, he was doing construction work. And so they called me up and said, do you want to be the opening act? And then you're going to be his band because he doesn't have a band and he hasn't played in like 20 years. We said, sure. And I'm like, called up the Willem, the guitar player, who you see in the movie. You know, they interviewed Willem and he said, man, the Rodriguez, you know, because we'd been listening to him since we were kids. And I said, yeah, cool. Yeah. So everybody was excited.
Home is acceptance. Here's a guy who lived somewhere else on the other side of the earth, and it was almost as if he had found his home. And I looked around at me, at all these people, and I thought, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. This is never going to happen again.
We then just rehearsed all the songs before he arrived, and he came from the airport to the studio where we'd been rehearsing, and we gave him a guitar. And man, it's always that moment when you hear that person's voice in the room with you, that you've heard that voice, and it's the exact same voice, and you're like, well, wow, just blew my mind. Yeah.
And the crowd loved it as well.
Oh man, it was insane. Yeah. I mean, and he couldn't believe it. You know, it was so gratifying to see that. You know, he'd made these albums, they'd gone nowhere. He'd basically, you know, had quite a tough life and a tough time in Detroit. And he came to South Africa. He was like the Beatles. It was seriously like the Beatles coming to the States, that first tour. That the people were going nuts. You know, I think you see in the movie, that one guy had a Rodriguez tattoo. And
he was so humble. He's so humble.
Yeah. He's a really great songwriter, really smart guy. Yeah.
I was going through some of the Big Sky stuff, and there was a couple of songs that really stuck out to me, and I love the Sally and Suzie. Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
What? See, you and I are simpatico. We're on the same wavelength.
You know, I haven't thought of that song in years.
I love Sally. She's alright, but a tattoo on her arm shines in the morning light. Sally dances across the fire, body shining, this warm desire. Sally, Sally, I love you.
And I always loved that song when I wrote it and when I recorded it.
Yeah,
I picked up on that.
Yeah, I just loved it, and I've got a number of songs. I mean, there's songs on all your album, all the Big Sky albums that I love, and including your other. You have 2 other solo albums out too.
Yeah,
but when Big Sky kind of, I guess it wasn't a band, so I can't say it broke up, but the band broke up. But you kind of took a sabbatical for a while, for like over 10 years.
Yeah. So what happened was, I had a deal with Sony in South Africa, and basically that deal ran out, and they didn't renew the deal. So I didn't have a record deal. So I was still playing in clubs and small venues and writing songs. And then Kevin, he did my last album, you know, in 2008 or whenever it was. And he just said to me, you've got to make another record. So I said, well, I don't really have a record deal. And he said, just commit and I'll sort everything out for you. I'll get you great players and we'll make a record. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he said, just do it. Come on. And so I said, yeah, sure. I'll see you on those dates in like a year's time. And I showed up and we made a record.
What's that?
That was the album Headlight Dreams.
Headlight Dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. It was recorded, man. It was recorded
2021.
2020 it came out. It came out in 21, but we recorded it February, March 2020.
Wow. On that, I love, speaking of fast songs, The Lost and Found is a song. I dig that on that album. It's so good.
We played all night, turned up loud. I sang to you, saw you in the crowd. Drank too much cheap red wine, making love under the pine. All that thing to do, get out to the lost and found.
How's that solo?
Yeah. And that's what I like about you is you don't mind stepping up the tempo, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, you picked it up. Yeah, Bernadette and the Lost and Found are fast.
Yeah. There's you did the Thunder and Rain LP, and Driving Through the Night and Giving Up on Me were a couple of tracks that really stuck out to me. And man, I just love your stuff.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to all of it. And thank you for reminding me about Sally and Suzie. That's such a cool song.
You know, I would love to see you. Are you going to tour? What's the plan with the new album?
Well, I'd love to. It's just, if there's enough, if people know about it and there's a demand, I'll tour in a shot. Yeah. It's really about getting people, to know who I am, or getting onto a bill, on a bigger bill where there is an audience, and introducing myself to the audience that way. And then you have to convince the promoters,
Yeah. Do they do, are you talking like a festival kind of thing where yeah. That would be great. I hope if you do tour, you pull some of those songs out, because they're just so refreshing. They're so great, man. Why is it that things haven't been pushed over here in the United States more for you?
Well, I think it's, it's only with streaming. Obviously, it's much easier. Right up until my deal with Sony expired in 2008, 2009, it was still, if you were signed to Sony in South Africa, it didn't mean that Sony in any other country would be putting out your stuff.
Right.
It's only now that, you go on Apple, Spotify, the streaming services, and it's in every country in the world. So it's because of that. The old kind of record distribution model was territorial.
Right.
And so if you were coming from the States, often the labels would distribute US artists in Europe or South Africa, but not the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's your due. So I hope people will find you and spend some time on their streaming services listening to your stuff, because I just love it. Where can people find info on you and things that are going on and kind of follow you around?
Well, on my website, which is stevelow.com, we do the normal kind of Instagram and Facebook stuff, and the website, and that's about it. Yeah. And then obviously on the streaming services and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Spotify.
Yeah. Well, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. And then also, you can get physical stuff. Like, I'm really excited that this album's out on vinyl, which is so cool. The vinyl sounds good.
Vinyl is always superior. And I am so glad vinyl is kind of making this comeback. And I've started to see it in the stores. You go into the stores and there's the vinyl, and and there's nothing like as a former club DJ who came up on vinyl. There's nothing better, and so that's very exciting. I love that. Steve, I wish you nothing but luck with Between Time and I love spending this time with you. I hope we can stay in touch. And as you have projects or you hit the road or whatever, I hope we can, have another short conversation and just let people know what you're doing and what you're planning.
I'd love to.
I love this record, brother. It's good stuff.
You, Steve. You made my day.
Well, keep on trucking, and let's talk again soon. Okay.
That'd be great. Thanks, Steve. Great chatting to you, man. Thanks.
All right, man. You take care. Have a great night. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. You have a good day. Thanks, Steve.
All right, see ya.
Bye. Okay, bye.
It's the kind of thing you do to leave my home laying around town.
questions or comments, email Steve at steveryan.songoftheday@gmail.com.